Rose Namajunas. Rose came out. She did an interview. And we miss Rose, right? Like, you can't really go wrong with Rose. Whatever she does, it's interesting. Sometimes she's training. Sometimes she's in camp. Sometimes she's just telling a story around the house. They all work. But I haven't heard from Rose in a period of time. So Rose came out. She said one thing that she's really going to do in preparation for her next fight. She said, I don't know when my next fight's going to be, but I know I'm going to have another fight. She's getting strong. She's lifted lots of weights and she's working on her body. But then when you talked about putting on strength, she also alluded to size and said, I'm not against going up to 125 pounds. And then she even said, fighting Valentina Shevchenko. That's an interesting idea. I get that it works. I get that you could do it. I get that you've got more world championships there than we could even keep track of. And of course you could make the match. I get that, but hold on. The story of the fight is very interesting. And before we jump off here, guys, please do not be the one that comes to the comment section and tells me some of us don't care about the story. We just want to see the fight. Please don't do that. There's a number of wonderful sports out there. Rodeo was my father's favorite sport. Gymnastics is the highest watched sport in the Olympic Games, which comes on once every 4 years. I could continue to play that game all the way down to the sport that I grew up on, that I was passionate about, known as wrestling. They're not on TV. It comes down to the old joke in the Seinfeld episode where George and Jerry are pitching Seinfeld, the show. They're pitching the pilot to the NBC executives. And the executive says, what is this show about? And George says, nothing. Guy goes, well, it has to be about something. And George says, no, nothing. It's about nothing. And the guy says, why am I watching it? And George says, because it's on TV. And the guy says, not yet. There's a real truth to that. And when people try to tell me that they just love the sport, good for you, whatever virtue that gives you, whatever position you feel that gives you over me. For me talking about the story and the reason and why we're here, how the crowd is going to react, how many people come to the weigh-ins, and how many headlines can you get. If I don't win this argument, guys, if I'm not the one here that's right, we're not on TV. If I'm not the one that's right in this back and forth battle that we have of you people that love to tell I'm a WWE guy, of which I don't watch, by the way. Since Hulk Hogan was dropping legs, I then came for the Stone Cold era, which parlayed into The Rock, but that goes back to my college days, and I stuck around for CM Punk and Chris Jericho. I mean, in all fair, I'm not a pro wrestling guy. It used to be on Monday nights. I don't even know if that's still true. I'm only sharing with you. There's stories and there's ways that you get on television. One thing that I like about Shevchenko and Rose, I don't know who else Valentina is going to fight, and Valentina is very unaware of her own career. All fighters are. There is no fighter out there who believes that anybody else's fight career is a bigger or more meaningful fight career. I mean, it's just a truth. It's okay. It's not an insult. Valentina is one of the great talents I've ever seen. I don't just mean now, and I don't categorize that to 125 pounds, and I don't even categorize that to the women's division. She's one of the great talents I've ever seen. Hard stop, period. She's a co-main event. She's continually a co-main event. She does not have a meaningful opponent to the point that if you were to do a simple Google search and find out what she's talking about or either whatever other people are talking about when they discuss her, it's a make-believe fight against Amanda at a make-believe weight class of 130 pounds, of which doesn't even exist. So when I tell you she doesn't have anything going on right now, it's very literal. The hardest she was ever pushed was in her last fight. It was a huge surprise. None of us knew that opponent could do so well. That opponent read from the playbook of Surreal Gone, which is to have a massive fight and then go bury your head in the sand. I was not overly familiar with that gal. I watched the fight. I loved it. Oh, it was just a wonderful fight. I can't produce her name for you, and I do this for a living. I'm very good. I can't produce her name. In fact, she was in the headlines today because some old manager is upset that she didn't write him the check that she owed him, according to him. I haven't seen her name since. Now, that would seem as though a very good fight to look at, but if we're not looking at it, and for whatever reason we're not, I mean, it's been 5 weeks, nobody's discussing it. The only thing that they're discussing, and that even includes Michael Bisping, who's a very big voice in the sport, is a make-believe fight at a make-believe weight class that doesn't exist against Amanda. So now I've successfully proved that we have nothing else to do. One of the problems that Valentina has, I think, but I'm the only one coming to the table with an idea. Therefore, I have the best idea just by default. I have the only suggestion, is Valentina needs to go heel. Valentina has simply never had a bad moment on camera. She has never not smiled. She has never not done a little dance. She has never complained. She's never made an excuse. She's never called out opponents. In all the years she's been on TV, can you imagine your most vulnerable moments? You're scantily dressed in front of the world against somebody who's trained to hurt you. Those are very real times. And in 6 years, to never have a bad moment, you come off as insincere. And the answer may be that she is. Maybe she is a heel. Maybe we don't know her. Now, hear me out whether you like it or not. I'll finish my thought, which is, how do you become a bad guy? If you're the cute, successful talent that everybody likes, you've never done anything wrong, what Chael just says you can move some more tickets by being heel, how do you do that? Well, a great way to do it is to bring in a bigger face. There is no good guy versus good guy. One of them instantly becomes bad. The crowd is simply not there to be neutral. That is not a North American audience. We do not come to an event and there's silence. You're going to cheer and you're going to boo. If you have two people that you like, you're not going to cheer them both. That is not the way that the fan psychology works. The fan will then deduce who they like more. That's it. And if you win in a popularity contest, the Bullet versus Rose, the Bullet is coming in second. The crowd has never and will never, no matter what happens, good, bad, or indifferent, booed Rose. It simply just hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. So it would be a great way where she could stick with her stick and she can do this nice girl routine, whatever that is that she enjoys. She could continue to do that. Crowd will boo her anyway. Crowd will root against her anyway. They might not pick her. They might not bet on her. They might not come out and predict she's going to win. They will boo her anyway. And I think for the experiment of which I'm laying out, which is the one and only suggestion to any kind of character development that has ever been spoken on God's earth as far as it pertains to Valentina Shevchenko, who is an absolute awesome talent and is a co-main event, I would be up for that experiment. I would like to know how she's going to respond. It's real easy to throw the smile on and do the dance and the whole thing when everything's going your way. Crowd's cheering for you no matter how soft and quiet. They're paying attention. They're giving you your due, no matter how much they just want you out of the ring so the main event can come, no matter how much they're doing. If they're bad, it's one of those things. If they're booing you, you've done nothing wrong. You've never done anything. You've never spoken out, and that crowd's booing you. You're a human being. You're going to respond to that, I would think. Now, if she responds and we like it, boom, problem solved. If she fights it and tries to still play along, boom, she's insincere, which is what I'm predicting in the first place. I like the match. One thing about Rose, too, guys, we're definitely in a situation with Rose that we will not count her out. We've made that mistake. We made that mistake 4 times, as a matter of fact. It was called Joanna Part 1, and it was called Joanna Part 2. It was called Wei Li Part 1, and it was Wei Li Part 2. We counted her out, and we just won't make that mistake again. We realize she's made for durability. We realize that the Bullet, as fantastic as she is, in her last fight, look, you can win some rounds against her. It used to be you couldn't win a sequence. You couldn't win a combo. You damn sure couldn't win a minute. She was on the cusp of losing the championship. It's one of those things, right? Timing works out. I think Rose versus Shevchenko, I don't think that's a blockbuster hit. I think it needs a little bit of massaging. I think it needs the story that I just told. I think you need to be very aware of what's happening. Rose going in a new weight class. We've counted out. We're not going to do that. Okay, great. Let's bring him to square, but let's also look at the fact that the Bullet, for the first time ever, is going to have an adverse reaction from the crowd. Some people don't care. They simply, it doesn't matter if you're cheering for them or booing. It doesn't matter if they're fighting at home or they're fighting in enemy territory. It doesn't matter. They truly don't care. Everybody says they don't care, but some guys really don't care. But other people, it does matter. They do care what that stranger says to them on Twitter. They do care about this perception. They do want to be the smiley, nice face. I don't know why they think they're a role model or something where you're trying to inspire little girls to drop out of high school and go into cage fight. Man, the whole thing's just weird, but there's people that think that. And you would, at a minimum, succeed in putting the Bullet in a position that she's never been, which is booed, to no fault of her own. Interesting spot. We could break down the X's and O's at another time. I don't have a better idea. I don't love what's happened to Rose at 115, if I'm to be quite frank with you. I don't think just because she and Carla went out and whatever happened, that you say to hell with it. I mean, as much as much of an egg as they laid, you can tell me it was the dullest fight. I can return to you and tell you it was the closest fight. We're both right. But I can also tell you about one that was worse. It was called Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. It was the third fight of the main card. They tried to rematch that fight in Houston in a main event for a world championship. The one fight that was less activity than Esparza versus Namajunas was elevated 2 spots in a sold-out arena. Oh, and by the way, they put the strap up. I mean, so not for nothing. You get a redo, right? Everybody gets a bad night. I think that she should have been right back in there with Esparza. I think for the mere fact that she gave Joanna a second chance, of which she was absolutely supposed to fall down and was even brought in there to do so. She gave away Lee a second chance, which she was absolutely brought in there to fall down. Walked through and did it anyway. I thought the favor should have been returned her. But if we're not doing that, she's talking about 125. Look, I like that. I really do like that. And the X's and O's, that's for another day. But you have 2 women who have found a way to weaponize pace. You have 2 women that can go out there and compete against anybody. They can grapple and they can strike. And now you're talking about Rose, you're talking about to put on some size, getting a little bit stronger. And that's essentially the Jon Jones experiment, which in all fairness does have me on the edge of my seat. I would be very up and very open to Rose versus the Bullet.